remember sitting in my like beaten up Honda Civic car in a car park like along the train tracks in Hyatt, and we were just smoking weed and like joking about wanting to kill ourselves, like like all the ways we'd do it, and like I don't think we actually necessarily wanted to die, but like we did want our circumstances to be different.
Boom. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Real Drug Talk. Now, just straight off the top, we've got Leo here today, which I'm excited about because he's one of my good mates. And we've done an episode already on the radio station that we have our show on, but we haven't put that up on the podcast. So we thought that we'd do part 2 and bang it up on the podcast. But just a disclaimer, I'm excited about it. I was just talking to Leo about it. If anyone just hears a dog going crazy in the background, don't worry. We just adopted a dog yesterday and she's just getting used to the house. And she's a little bit nuts, but she's gorgeous. So sorry if you hear a crazy dog, but how you going, Leo?
Good. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
No worries. Now, how do you go with all this stuff, talking about your story publicly? Obviously, I know you personally, we fuck around, have a laugh, all that sort of stuff, and I know your story, but how do you go speaking about it publicly? Is it weird?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like probably maybe a couple of years back, if I was, talking about it, I'd probably feel a bit uncomfortable. I think, as the years have gone on, I've slowly kind of eased into being a bit more open about myself and about my life, I guess. I guess like, having friends like you as well who, quite openly share their story and stuff has, I guess, opened me up to that idea. And nowadays I feel quite passionate. I feel like I definitely have a story to tell. I feel like, nothing really but, good can come from, sharing your experience and kind of, letting people out there know that they're not necessarily alone as well. Yeah. I guess sharing some funny shit along the way.
Yeah. So no, I think it's awesome, but it's a good issue to talk about, actually, I think, because there's kind of some funny nuance around it. I'd be interested to get your opinion. So how many years have you kind of been in recovery now for?
So I'm coming up to 4 years clean at the end of the year. So just a couple of months shy of that. And, I've kind of been around recovery circles since about 2014. So I don't know, what's that, like 6 or 7 years?
Yeah.
6 years. So, I remember when I first did something a while ago, like on the radio, and someone did say to me, remember that's going to be out there forever. And, I do think about it when I come to do this stuff. I go, is that going to affect, future job opportunities and stuff like that? But I guess I'm lucky, I work in the AOD field and stuff like that. So, I share my story pretty regularly within my work and, aspects of my story. So, I guess I've become more comfortable with it. And, I'm lucky enough to not be too worried about that stuff in my workplace.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because, as you know, we're doing the Experience Matters Collective, and we're thinking about, because there's always this debate about people with a lived experience, and it's true. It's correct, and it's a good thing around, teaching people how to tell their stories. But it's been funny because I've been talking to professionals lately and stuff, and it's a fine balance, because you do want to talk to people about the pitfalls that could happen. You want to talk about the benefits that could happen. And you want to help them to frame their story so they don't get taken advantage of and all that stuff. But then also, right, I found, and I'd be interested to hear if you found the same thing. There's kind of professionals, and they think they're sort of helping, but they're almost telling people how to tell their stories, just to kind of conveniently fit into the bits that they want to hear about, because it fits into the academic research that they've been conducting or whatever it is. Have you experienced that, or what do you think about the parameters around having people help you tell your story? I know we weren't expecting to talk about this. I randomly thought about it.
I don't know. I feel like it's kind of like anything in life. you know, from politics to, you know, wherever you go, like people are trying to frame particular narratives.
Yeah.
And, you know, society does try and mold, you know, in any kind of conversation, how we frame a different narrative. And I think, you know, all that stuff you mentioned is really important. But and the reality is that you know, if it's a genuine trying to kind of help, you know, say a consumer or someone who's, you know, sharing their story, if it's a genuine thing of like, hey, we care about your interests, I think that stuff's really important.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, right, you know, that there's a whole heap of stigma out in the community. You know, people with drug and alcohol issues are viewed as, you know, people who just haven't tried hard enough in life,
Yeah.
or, you know, people who have made that choice. So I think by going out and sharing your story, the reality is like, if you do want to, you know, step into a workplace that, you know, is kind of away from maybe, you know, the community sector or something like that, it is really important for, you know, someone who cares about your interests to go, hey, like, just so you know, like, I understand you, but the rest of the world might not.
Yeah.
So there's that real balance between, you know, offering genuine support, and then, you know, on the other side of things, I guess people just want you to kind of fit their narrative, and I don't necessarily have the answer to that, but I do kind of know whenever I've stepped into, you know, like something like this, or maybe something in the bit more mainstream, say radio, I am always really curious about what narrative they're trying to push, and what kind of conversations they're trying to have. I've been, my experience with talking, which, you know, kind of publicly is probably not to the extent that you have, but it's definitely been one where whenever I've been asked to talk, it's been, you know, a positive thing. And more so I've been given really, you know, really good props for, you know, I guess where I've come from to where I am. So that's really good, but I'm sure there's heaps of people out there who've had bad experiences and put their story out there, and, you know, the media or whoever has kind of adopted it to be a certain way. So I think that's really disappointing. I think that just, you know, further creates, you know, stigma within the community.
Yeah. And I'm interested to find out about it because we're now having a lot of people reaching out to me after this podcast, kind of saying, you know, they want to come on and talk about their story and stuff, which is cool. And it's kind of a reflection of what I'm thinking about when I'm talking to people. And I'm the same as you. I don't exactly know the answer either. But how did you kind of decide, like, when the time was right? Was it a time limit thing? Was it just how you were feeling? Because some people want to share their stories like when they're like 30 days into their journey. And on one hand, they're actually the best stories to hear because they're so close to addiction and all that stuff that they can articulate it really well and all that stuff. But then also it's really hard to know whether you want to, what you want to do in your life when you're like 30 days into your journey, you know? So how do you kind of, how did you make that decision?
Oh, look, firstly, I'll start by saying, like, I'll come back to my decision, but I think, you know, what comes to mind for me when we talk about, you know, asking people, you know, that are a bit more kind of fresh, you know, in, I guess, trying to get clean or, you know, drug and alcohol recovery. I think about as a worker, and as a human being, like, what is my duty of care to another person? So in a situation like that, I'd think about, like, my duty of care is probably to, you know, support or advise a person that may not necessarily be, you know, in the best place in their life, just to, you know, move forward with caution. And I think that's what I do with any friend, like, you know, and when I say duty of care, that's a bit of a fancy kind of thing that, you know, talk about in a, you know, community services workplace, but really it's just looking out for someone else and going, like, offering them a different kind of perspective on maybe, you know, that might not be the best thing at this point in your life, depending on what you want to do. But for me, I really, really, look, I think I spoke when I first got offered to do some radio. I think I had a chat with you. I think we're on our way up to, like, you know, Lawn. We're going away for the weekend or something like that, and I got this offer in the car.
Remember. Oh, you did too. Yeah, that's right.
I can't imagine you would. I think I had a chat with you, but I also just, you know, spoke to people that I really trusted.
Yeah.
people who have kind of been through the same journey as me in terms of, recovery, people who I really respect that work in the same field as me. And I just wanted to get a kind of a rounded kind of view on how, putting myself out there could either benefit me or affect me. And look, ultimately, I kind of bring it back to the fact that I'm lucky because I do work in that sector, and the organisation I work for really celebrates the lived experience of
Yeah.
people, and so all that stuff's really helpful. But God, if I was working in a corporate kind of setting where relationships like were a big part of my work, and I was trying to do all this fancy stuff, I'd probably really consider it. I don't think that reconsider. I mean, I don't think that should be the case, but I'm pretty realistic, and I'm quite aware of the stigma out there and how people can really kind of hinder how they move through life. So
Yeah. No, interesting. So on that note, what is your story? Give us the 3-minute snapshot.
Yeah, I hate it how you ask for a 3-minute snapshot. Just it doesn't. It's not really able to capture it. But
I love just watching people try and synthesize it down.
Yeah, squirm when you ask for that. So I guess look, oh God, how do I say it? So my story has kind of been that I didn't grow up in like a terrible family or anything like that. Like most people, I grew up in a family that had quite a bit of dysfunction. Single parent household, and I had issues at school. Lots of bullying, stuff like that. I was quite an overweight kid when I was younger. Always kind of felt really different, which I'm sure is like a common thing you kind of hear when you talk to people, Jack. But always felt really different. At some point along the way in my schooling, I bounced around from different schools, and then I kind of landed at a school, fell in with the dude smoking ciggies out the back and stuff, and one thing just led to another. I always wanted to be accepted. Not that I realized it back then, but I always just felt really different, always needed to be accepted. And, I fell into using drugs. And at the age of 13, I was smoking weed every day and, skipping school. And, from the age of 13 to 21 was, my story of addiction that, went from smoking weed to, party drugs, ecstasy and all that stuff to, then injecting heroin and ice and, becoming really heavily addicted to Xanax and, having crime as a part of my story and being involved in the juvenile justice system and, having things like, police curfews at the age of 16 and, having to report to the police station twice. So we're going to all that kind of stuff and just really crazy stuff for like a young person, like breaking into houses, breaking into cars, hanging out with people who were kind of in and out of jail. And I was really just a sweet kid who just like nowadays, like when I tell people that, they go, what the fuck? Like that's
but that's funny that you say that, right? And sorry to jump in, but like it is funny when you say that, because for people listening, I forget about that, but I remember like going over to Leo's house and like having to jump in the window or fucking running back to your house or something to try and make the curfew so that we were home just in case the police came or whatever. But like, yeah, all of it just seems so normal. And I think that's the thing that's misunderstood. When I look back on our friends and just like what you said, like all of our friends was somehow or another in trouble with the police or doing all that stuff that you just said. But all like really nice kids, like when it kind of came down to it, really, like not like, I don't know, not like running around doing like violent crime or I don't know, like, yeah, just, or maybe some people, but anyway.
Sometimes.
Yeah. But that's what makes me laugh. Like if you actually just take the person for the person, just really like nice, kind people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, when I genuinely think about it, like there's so many like aspects at play when like I think about my like young teenage years moving into like, you know, young adult years. I just had so much anger inside of me, and I wouldn't say I'm an angry person. But I look back and I go, wow, that was a really angry like young person. And you know, like I connect that anger back to you know, feeling powerless as a young person.
Yeah.
Within my family environment, within the situations that I was put in, you know, um, with my mum's kind of different relationships and stuff like that. Like I felt really powerless. And as a young person, when you feel powerless and you don't know how to communicate that stuff, you feel angry, you know?
Yeah.
I just had this like unresolved anger that I ended up turning against myself in a way, you know,
Mm.
and I did that by using drugs and then being angry towards the community, right? So
Yeah.
all these, yeah, it's just interesting, kind of looking back and going, yeah, dude just didn't know how to feel emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, do you reckon, I don't know, like, why did addiction happen to you?
Mm, yeah, tough. Like, I feel like, look, I feel like, to be honest, I go off. I'm sure there's heaps of different things at play, but I really do go off, you know, the model of like childhood experience in a way. You know, that's how I make sense of my story. You know, and I think, like I said, like I grew up in a loving household, you know, with like, you know, my mum and my sister, and you know, I had somewhat of a relationship with my dad, but there was always extreme dysfunction. You know, living with one of mum's boyfriends, or you know, having to move schools, and you know, not having my dad there permanently around, and not having really any you know, really healthy male role models. You know, that idea of you know, like experiencing rejection and abandonment as a young person, you know, like those things like seep into your, you know, into your psyche.
Mm.
And I genuinely, yeah, feel like it comes down to like experience, and then how I've had an inability as a young person to kind of, I guess, adapt to that experience and recognize those feelings. And then I'm just kind of left with myself trying to cope, trying to work out how I cope with life, and then drugs become an option. I don't know. That's kind of a messy way of explaining it, and I don't necessarily have the full answer. I think it's a bunch of different things, but yeah. And like when I say like childhood experience, who knows if I grew up in this, you know, normal Australian household, like, you know, father and mother, you know, went to a private school, like who knows, I still might have, you know, got into using and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know, it's a hard one, man.
Yeah. So, like, in recovery then as well, like, um, have you had to continually go on and seek professional help? Have you been diagnosed with stuff? Like, has there been, in a good or a bad way, like labels put onto you that make sense, that have played out in your life, that you can kind of make sense of and tie back to your experiences with drugs?
Yeah, sure. Like I guess my kind of story was in terms of like, you know, at the age of 21 to 25, I started trying to get clean, and you know, had a few little hiccups along the way, and kind of got clean and then used, and got clean and then used. But my experience was I was always really against kind of like therapy, and I, like as a young person, I was like, you know, 15, 16, 17, mum just wanted to fix me. She'd take me to psychologists. She'd take me to family counselling. I'd have to go to, you know, juvenile justice workers, like all this stuff. And obviously I didn't put any effort into doing it, but like I just got taken there. So, but I always had this thing of like, nah, they don't work. So this time around, when I really decided that you know, I needed to stop using drugs, I, yeah, thought like, fuck, I better do some therapy. And I ended up engaging with this dude who just from the moment I met him kind of felt extremely comfortable with, and I ended up getting a diagnosis of complex post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
And for me, that diagnosis. So the difference with complex post-traumatic stress is it's a prolonged exposure to trauma, right? So and that kind of opposed to kind of one specific incident, and that kind of says to me that like as a young person, right, or whether I can connect it to my using years, I can also connect to my younger years, but we've kind of established like a fair bit of that comes from when I was a young person, and having that I guess diagnosis or label or whatever you want to call it, it's really to give me some understanding and go, oh yeah, like it's not like something else is acknowledging my pain in a way, and going like, it wasn't easy for me, and the experience I had with my whole life was I minimized everything. Like I grew up my whole life saying, oh yeah, nothing bad enough has happened to me to become a drug addict. Like my life was good, and by going into therapy and I guess looking at that diagnosis and having a professional say to me, Leo, like that some tough shit happens, like that's not normal. And someone going like, it's no wonder you have, these feelings of, rejection and abandonment, and you kind of like look for something to kind of aid you in feeling that stuff, in not feeling that stuff. So that that label and diagnosis was really helpful for me. It has kind of at times gone into oh, I'm stuck with this. I'm going to be like this forever. But more so than not, more times than not, it's been a really helpful thing.
Yeah. Nah, and definitely, because it's funny, right? And just for everyone listening, being 100% honest, like, I've had numerous conversations with Leo after him having this diagnosis, which has kind of inspired me to try and get out of denial a little bit and slowly go back and see different professionals, because despite having in my life having a lot of shit going really well, I guess externally and internally, I still have patches where I'll just fucking be like wiped out, and it's not normal either. It's not like, oh, I'm just feeling a bit flat. it's like I can't get out of bed,
and people are probably like, we're laughing about this, right?
Yeah.
People probably hear this and probably don't understand that, like, we're just laughing about it because we know like depression and all this stuff isn't funny. It's fucking really hard, but knowing you, I know what it's like for you, and it's hard, not to laugh at times.
Yeah. No, and it's good. Well, that's the only thing you can do is laugh, and it actually fucking helps me to laugh about it. But like what you were saying is true, is like I always, and I don't know how to say this politically correctly, but this is my podcast, so who gives a fuck? I always associated that kind of thinking of myself as having a diagnosis or acknowledging my troubles in my life and the different stuff that's happened as not like weak. I don't think it's weak, but I very much saw different people in my life that were like fucking victims to their past experiences, not just because they had it, but just constantly not like having a diagnosis or having an awareness of what's going on, and not just talking about it, but really like falling into it and going on about it and just becoming that identity of that thing. And I really associated talking about my stuff around that and not wanting to be one of those people. But you're right, like 100% acknowledging it and actually having the courage to talk about it and kind of go, oh fuck, that really did happen to me. It helps heaps. Heaps.
And when you talk about like, it becoming someone, going through like going through, now it's been almost 4 years of therapy. And those early year or two, the early years or two of doing that stuff, I felt at times like, my pain was my whole world,
Yeah.
because I was so consumed in it at times,
Yeah.
because, you know, you just don't have the tools to manage that stuff. And I find it interesting that, like, I know heaps of people that have the same kind of narrative as you just kind of mentioned around, like, the mental health stuff,
Yeah.
that you had, sorry. And I just find it interesting that, you know, we can put up our hands and go, hey, like, I'm a recovering drug addict, but then we can't acknowledge mental illness or mental health issues. And to me, that just speaks so loudly of, like, that just ingrained stigma in society that, like, even being a drug addict's worse than having a mental health issue, you know?
Yeah. 100%.
Even though they're so heavily intertwined, but I find it interesting.
Yeah. And I find it weird as well, because to me, uh, mental health issues are way more easier to kind of explain medically, well, I find anyway, to people or to society, you know, way more easy to explain that than it is to kind of explain someone's drug addiction, you know, like, but still a lot of people find it harder to acknowledge the mental health thing, even though it's pretty well documented that a lot of it is just like a medical thing that you have no control of. It's like having a fucking diabetes or something, like type 1 diabetes or something, you know, it's like, it just happens. So yeah, it's really interesting. And just a side note, like Holly that we work with in the connection-based living program, she's all about it. And I reckon she's onto something. So out of every single client that we've had, I think there's one person that hasn't had multiple concussions in their life, that doesn't have like addiction issues and some mental health issues. And there's like this research about that. And yeah, it's really interesting how it's all linked in. Yeah.
I'd like to hear more.
So how did you, so we got sidetracked a little bit there, but you went through like addiction, and what was your main drugs? Like, what was your thing? Because you actually a little bit different, like, yeah, you used ice and all that stuff, but I reckon your main thing was like prescription pills for a lot of the time. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. I mean, like, it's so hard for me to really clearly define my because I loved them all.
Yeah.
I loved them all. I was an absolute glutton for you know, pretty much anything that made me you know, not have to be in reality, you know, but you know, like I said, like, since the age of 13, I was really heavily, you know, like, addicted to cannabis, and you know, smoking weed in the family home, like, you know, every day, having groups of, like, you know, 8 young men, you know, jam packed into this small little bedroom that I had, and you know, my mum just wondering, like, what the fuck is going on in there. And you know, like, I remember once I got addicted to the chuff, and you know, probably about a year in or whatever, like, obviously I was a really young person, so like, I didn't have heaps of cash. Like, the way I used to kind of fund that, you know, like, at that time was, you know, I was smoking a gram of weed a day at the age of 14, and which isn't much at all, but the way I funded that was, you know, like, at school, I'd go scab, you know, like, dollar coins at the tuck shop line at lunchtime and stuff, and you know, get $15 for the end of every school day, you know. And I remember one day I couldn't do that for some reason, or one day I didn't have money, and I didn't have weed that night, and I just couldn't sleep. And it was my first real experience of, like, oh fuck, like, I'm reliant on this shit. And you know, like, I went into my mum's room, like, oh, mum, can't sleep. She didn't have any idea why. And you know, she gave me this pill. And my mum was like, it's really sweet, like, you know, really clueless person. She was prescribed a prescription drug called Valium for her anxiety, right? And so she goes, oh, this might help, Leo, you know, like, try this. And the poor thing, like, no idea. And, you know, I tried it, and it felt good, you know, put me to sleep. And so from there, I guess, like, I started, you know, stealing her prescription medication, so Valium. After a while, she got prescribed to Xanax, and you know, like, I started to work out that, oh, if I took this Xanax and this Valium, and I smoked weed as well, I'd feel even better. And And, you know, then I worked out, you know, if I drank on it, like I'd feel even better, and like all this different stuff. And, you know, really quickly, really it wasn't Xanax it was like Xanax with something else was
Yeah.
my drug of choice. That was my holy grail. And, you know, from those moments, my goal in life was to get prescribed to Xanax. I'd be happy if I got a prescription to Xanax. And, you know, obviously, when you take Xanax, it's almost like a blackout drunk kind of thing. You forget whole, you know, big periods of, you know, what you've been doing. You wake up and the next morning you got all this stolen shit like at your feet and kind of don't know where you've been. You woke up with cuts, bruises, you know, bleeding. Well, that was my experience.
Oh, 100%. To this day, I tell people that all the time. 100% like the worst drug that I ever took. Not because of, but it was Xanax. Because like, and it was really cheap when we were using as well. It was like, I know it's really expensive now, but it was like $2 for a tablet.
Yeah.
And you could like, when you first start, you can, or anytime really, you could have like 1 or 2 tablets and a couple of beers and you're fucked. Like there's a good chance that you'll struggle to remember stuff the next day, you know?
Yeah. And like that stuff is so addictive as well. Like, the stuff that's produced by pharmaceutical companies,
it's the good stuff.
That's the good stuff. That's the most addictive stuff. And, you know, withdrawals from, you know, any kind of, you know, prescription pill like Xanax or Valium or, you know, lorazepam and all that stuff, extremely, extremely difficult to withdraw off. And, you know, for me, I remember this really clear time where, you know, like I had a couple of mates who got into using heroin, and I tried heroin a few times, and, you know, I'd overdosed like every time, like, you know, stopped breathing and got brought back to life. And I thought, oh, I better just stick to the Xannies. And, I had this one time where I was, you know, off my head down at, you know, one of the local train stations, and, you know, like can of bourbon in one hand, ciggy in another hand, trying to scab money for it, you know, another can of bourbon, really like low kind of stuff. I'm thinking about it, it's just crazy. But and I was just so like dead set on I needed to get the train to Richmond and go to my dealer to get Xannies. And I had these 2 dudes that I was with who, you know, were pretty hooked on heroin. And they were like, Leo, like, why can't you just not? You know, like, why don't you just not get Xannies today? And I was just like, I just like had to go. And they just left me there. You know, I think about times like that and I go like, you know, the power of that little pill, you know, like on my psyche and on my mind. And, you know, it just took over. And, you know, add that in with, you know, starting to use ice and stuff like that. And, you know, your brain changes.
And I think one of the worst things about Xanax, and this is like what I remember about you, if you don't mind me sharing, but you know, like it's hard to explain to people, but you just can't, you're so stupid. Like when you're on it, you literally will like say the same thing over and over again and stuff like that. So if you're taking those every day and drinking and you have like a month of that, which you did like multiple times, like you just miss, like there's bits of my life from using that I can't remember just at all from taking Xannies and stuff. And the thing that's like the worst about that is it just like, like fucks your memory and stuff like that. So I remember like going over to Leo's and he had like a wall full of, literally like a wall full of yellow sticky notes with just like little thoughts written down, nothing intelligent, just like this and that. Do go to the shop to get this that day or whatever, because you just couldn't remember anything. And like, that's kind of how you were operating your life.
Mate, unbelievable. I look, it's embarrassing, right? Like thinking about it now, but I also, you know, I can laugh about it because obviously I'm not there anymore. If I was still there, it wouldn't be funny. And you know, but yeah, man, it's crazy. It's crazy, that stuff. And I still kind of look back and go, yeah, I don't remember, from about the years, the ages of like 14 to probably 21, massive chunks of my life, they're probably dug away in there somewhere, but yeah, I can't remember. And it's like when you bring up stories like that, I go, yeah, that's right. And like when someone else mentions something, I remember, but yeah, it's scary that can happen. You can just lose big chunks and, do things that you don't remember. And like I really, with the weed and the pills, like the consistent weed use and the pills, like I ended up developing this like identity that like, yeah, I was just this fried, stupid person that said some funny shit from time to time. But, like people laughed at, my jokes and stuff. And I developed that as an identity as well. I was like, oh, Leo's just, this dude. So like that's what's been really cool about recovery as well, is like kind of re-looking at who Leo is as a person and going, oh, you're not that. And then having the ability to go study and work and go like, yeah, you're not just this like fried kind of dumb person.
Yeah, 100%. So how did you make, like, so you said at 21 you started that's the funny thing. I was sorry everyone, there goes the doggo. That's the funny thing, right? And I was talking about this to one of our other good friends. I always remember you and him in particular always going to detox as well, like from a very young age. Like, even though you said like 21 was like when you were trying to stop, and I guess maybe that's rehab, there was always elements with you, and even like with Sammy, he used to go to detox a lot as well. Like, yeah, there was always, from like ever since I can remember, really, you're always like going to detox, and there's sort of this sense of wanting something different in your life.
Yeah. It's when I look back at my journey, it's actually crazy. So, started using, the more mild drugs. I say mild, they're not mild, but like when I was younger, like 13, 14, and at the age of 14, 15, I was already engaged with, the counselor at the school I went to. She kind of had engaged me with a drug and alcohol worker who'd come visit me at my house and stuff like that, and take me to Macca's and shit like that. So I loved seeing him because,
they used to buy you bongs and shit. I remember that. Yeah.
Bongs?
Workers used to buy you bongs. Yeah. I had someone that bought me a bong because it was like the harm minimization thing. They didn't want me smoking out of like a Gatorade bottle and stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
I don't think my worker ever bought me a bong. But yeah, used to buy me Macca's and stuff and come visit me. And like, I think, at that really young age, that stuff was more to appease my family and to kind of like, try and maintain what I was doing. Like, by seeing that work, I was able to maintain because I was seen to be trying to kind of get help, I think. So that's a very early stages. And, obviously in those times I was, mum was taking me family counseling and all that stuff. And, then at, I think the age of 15, 16, I was still engaged with that worker. And I think I think it was about 15. I had my first like, quite serious criminal charge, been arrested for burglary and yeah, like my mum was just freaking out. I was freaking out because I'd never been in trouble with the cops. And like, I was like, oh shit, like, am I going to jail? Really, I wasn't even close to going to jail, but at that stage. But yeah, so like I kind of went to detox at the age of 15, 16, and obviously that looked good for me for court. But there was a part of me that knew what I was doing. Like there was a part of me that goes, all right, you can't be doing this, but I really wanted to do it too. Like like that drug or those drugs, did something really powerful for me, and they allowed me to be carefree and emotionless in the world. And I was never carefree and emotionless because I had so much inside of me. And yeah, look, I think you're probably right though. Like after the age of like 16, 17, I started going to detox a few more times and actually started trying. So
Yeah.
at a young age, I was trying to quit. But, you know, I definitely wasn't at that stage where I was actually ready to, but it was kind of like that whole thing is like, you know, if your ass is on fire, you know, like try and put it out. But yeah, I wasn't fully willing to put my fire out.
So you got to 21, like, what was like the final tipping point for you that actually pushed you over the edge to kind of do something fully serious or do the level of support and help that you really needed to get the change that you wanted?
Oh, look, dude, I don't know. Like, I think, like I remember this one really specific time. So I'd pretty much lost, you know, most of my friends in my life. Like you'd got clean quite a few years before me, and you know, obviously you separate yourself when you kind of get clean. And you know, I'd been in quite a, you know, traumatic relationship that you know, was full of using, full of, you know, lots of kind of just damage and pain. And so I'd been in that relationship that had fallen apart. I'd lost a bunch of my friends. Well, not lost them, but that, you know, people went in different areas. Heap of them kind of passed away. And this one dude who I had been really good friends with, without a falling out because he kind of sold me dodgy ice. And yeah, we ended up re-engaging and kind of using together for the last little bit. And I remember sitting in my like beaten up Honda Civic car in a car park like along the train tracks in Hyatt, and you know, we were just smoking weed and like joking about wanting to kill ourselves, like like, but like, and like all the ways we'd do it, and like I don't think we actually necessarily wanted to die, but like we did want our circumstances to be different.
Yeah.
And yeah, like he just kind of turned to me and said, "Oh, I think I need to go to rehab." And I'd explored the ideas of detoxes before, but I'd never considered long-term rehab. And this dude who'd used this quite similar to me, we'd had kind of some of the same experiences. I kind of had this thought, and I went, "Oh, if he thinks that's a good idea for him, maybe it's a good idea for me." And then over the next kind of month, we both kind of you know, worked together to try and get ourselves both into like, you know, rehab and detox. And he ended up going up to one in Sydney, and I ended up going to one out kind of past Pakenham in rural Victoria. And yeah, that was where I guess like my recovery journey started. And my recovery journey has been a long one since then, but that was where I was exposed to the ideas of, you know, long-term recovery and, you know, having a different life.
Yeah. Yeah. So just quickly, I ask everybody this that's been, what's rehab like? Like, what do you fucking do? What's it all about? You know, how long was it?
Man, I had no idea what it would be like. I knew what detox was like, which is just like you kind of just chill in a house and like, you know, you eat good food and stuff and try and get the drugs out of your system. But
Yeah.
I had no idea what rehab would be like. And I thought it would probably be a bit more cruisy than what I expected.
Yeah.
But yeah, like for me, rehab was on this farm out in, you know, like I said, country Victoria, and you know, a bunch of different houses. There was, you know, about 50 people on the property as well, other kind of people in recovery. And what it was, you know, a long-term process from, I was in rehab for about 9 months. You know, people these days kind of stay for up to a year at times. But what it kind of is like, you know, a long-term behavior change program in a way.
Yeah.
And I guess like, you kind of do stuff like you know, behavior change, stuff to do with relationships, and when you change behavior and you change relationships, you know, your kind of thinking changes, I guess, in a way. And yeah, man, rehab was like one of the best times of my life. It sounds weird saying that, but that was the first time since a really young person that I experienced, you know, actual like love, care from, you know, genuine love and care. That was the first places I started to develop male role models, and to go, oh, okay, so like, these other male role models that I've been looking towards, like they're probably not where it's at, you know.
Yeah.
I'm starting to develop healthy ones, and yeah, it was a life-changing experience.
And we're back. Sorry about that, people. Just to let everybody know, I was just saying to Leo, I'm actually doing a gut protocol with Holly, who we've had on talking about that. Go back and listen to that episode. And it's just, it messes with your, digestive system. That's right. Probably too much information, but anyway. So I find that interesting what you're saying, that it's like a long-term behavioral change program. And I think that's a really good way to explain it, because people often think, you know, oh, I'm going to rehab, like what the fuck is that? And it just really demystifies it, you know, because I remember when I went, I don't know why I thought that, but yeah, maybe because that's previously sort of a little bit of what I'd experienced with the medical system. I thought it was going to be like the psych ward, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And totally. I sort of thought I was going to be, just in my own little room thing, I don't know. And it wasn't that. It was something completely different, you know?
Yeah. Look, like it was certainly a shock to the system when I stepped foot inside this place, you know, like, my anxiety from using drugs, you know, had gotten to the point where like I'd struggled, you know, on a day-to-day basis, I'd struggle to step out into society. You know, like my world kind of was you know, the house I was sleeping at, and my you know, little 4-door Honda Civic that I'd like jump in the car and, you know, go use drugs down at the park in. And if I had to fill up petrol, I had to G myself up for you know, a good period of time before actually stepping outside of that car and, you know, going to fill up the petrol and going in to pay for it, because I was just by this time I was just so scared of the world. I was so anxious and kind of paranoid, and felt so different that you know, like I my anxiety was just through the roof. And then stepping into this rehab with, you know, 50 to 60 other kind of people, you know, around you kind of at all times. And you know, like it was just terrifying. And like I remember getting there and like my hands were just sweating and I was just so nervous. And you know, like obviously that stuff chilled out over time, but the idea of like, you know, being around people 24/7, having healthy relationships, you know, learning to communicate your needs, which is behavior change, you know, learning to talk about emotions, learning to, you know, learning to just be different and having the structures in place to kind of, you know, behave in a different way. You know, you do that stuff for long enough and you create patterns. And the way I like to kind of think about it is like, you know, like our brain works off like all these different pathways and like wirings and stuff. And, you know, our brain is experiences and memories. And if I'm a young person and I step out onto a street and almost get hit by a car, and my mum drags me back and goes, "Don't fucking step out onto the street. You could have killed yourself." Like that then plants a memory in my head and goes, all right, so next time you step onto a street, you look both ways so you don't, you know, die and your mum doesn't crack the shits
100%,
at you.
Yeah.
That's what kind of rehab was as well, as like, you know, having experiences and in a safe space to go, oh, it's okay to kind of talk about emotions, or it's okay to kind of, if someone annoys you, go, hey, like that didn't make me feel very good. You know, like learning all that stuff. Because, you know, I'm sure like you've spoken about plenty of times before, Jack, like using drugs is not about getting high. It's having like that is the byproduct of it. But getting high means we don't have to interact in life and you know, take responsibility and have these feelings, you know. And I needed to learn how to do that in a safe space. And it's certainly like it was mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and it is like, it sounds so simple, but it is like really profound, because, and how you explained it is really, you explained it really well, because essentially we're like, as humans, we're just kind of like dogs or monkeys. We're just like a little bit smarter, you know what I mean? And so that's right. And we kind of get patterns and habits and ways of doing things programmed into us, whether that be externally in our behavior or internally, emotionally. We get that programmed into us. So if we're like using drugs and we're going on that pattern for a long time, obviously there's all a bunch of different belief systems and emotional patterns that form, and you have to, like, essentially you have to reprogram yourself when you go to rehab.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I make those correlations between, you know, childhood experience, and, you know, like, and then how that stuff affects your life, and then, you know, say doing something like rehab can change those experiences in a way. So, like, if you grow up in a household where, you know, there's heaps of dysfunction and your feelings, you know, are unheard by, you know, your primary caregivers, or you know, you feel unsafe, the experience you adapt in your head is like, okay, so life is unsafe, or, you know, it's unsafe to communicate my needs, or to tell people, hey, like, this is not okay, or I don't feel safe in this environment. And, you know, I spoke about internalizing that stuff, and you internalize that stuff, and then obviously you get into this using world and stuff, and you internalize it even more. And, you know, rehab was the very beginning of breaking down some of those chains that, like, I guess my past experience had kind of wrapped me up in. And, you know, rehab's not like, you know, 9 months of rehab doesn't fix that stuff, but it definitely, like, gives you that really early experience to go, okay, like, there is a different way to do things.
Yeah, interesting. So something else that I want to ask you about that people always ask me is, you kind of mentioned your recovery journey. It's been from that time that you went to rehab, but hasn't always gone smoothly, but it's been since then, which is about 6 or so years. And then you've been completely sober for 4 years or something. And fuck, that's gone quick. So what is, like, a big question, what is, like, recovery? Like, what does that actually mean? Or, like, what are you doing if you're in recovery? Like, what is that? Is it just an extension of the stuff that you do in rehab, or is it something else? Or
it's not, like, kind of, I guess, like, rehab kind of created that foundation. But, like, you know, I guess to put it into some context, like, my recovery journey has been, so like 2014, I entered into this rehab, and I spent specifically about 7 or 8 months in the actual rehab, and then went into the transition program. And, you know, like, at that stage, I was still 21, 22, so quite young, and, you know, quite, I guess, naive to some of the, you know, how tough it would actually be. And what happened for me was, you know, after this, you know, like, almost a year kind of long thing with the rehab kind of program, I you know, I went out and I studied and stuff like that. I went and studied youth work and drug and alcohol, and, you know, like, my kind of thinking was that, okay, I've done rehab, and, you know, like, I'm sweet now in a way. And, you know, so after, you know, kind of that experience and staying clean for almost 2 years, I kind of started to move back into life and, you know, start working and all that stuff. And, what happened was, you know, I started drinking again, and ended up picking up drugs and having, you know, a big kind of, go at using again, for a couple of months. And, I think, you know, when I think about recovery these days, you know, like, it's not my whole world, but what it is, I guess, you know, for me, constantly being willing to kind of grow and learn about myself. And, like, my recovery looks like a bunch of different things. It's obviously, like, you know, attending stuff like, you know, a few support groups that I go to. A massive part of my recovery, is that therapy stuff that I spoke about. And, being open to therapy has been massive. And, you know, stuff like mindfulness, which, is like, you know, doing meditation, that's absolutely changed my life.
how does that help?
How does that help? Like, look, my experience with mindfulness and meditation was, it's like pretty much everything that I do in my life, I, at some stage or another, I've been against it, or like kind of haven't kind of been open to doing it. And I had a mate who was using, and I used to tell him like, all right, like you need to do this, like you do these different things, and that's going to help you. And he'd never listen to me. And I get really fucking pissed off. And then one day he kind of came to me and he said, oh, dude, I've been meditating. Like, you should try this. And I thought, oh, fuck you. Like, you don't listen to me, so I'm gonna listen to you, and I'll really show you. And I had this experience where I went home and I meditated, and I don't know, like I guess I did kind of have like
a mystical experience.
A little bit. That's not what meditation is for me these days. But I felt, these sensations in my body, and I felt like a bit of a separation from my thinking. And I thought, wow, this stuff's amazing. And for me, meditation has been a bunch of different things. But for me, meditation is, being still, and, despite whatever I'm feeling or thinking, just being okay with it. And not reacting to, my how I feel or what I'm thinking about, and not being so guided in my day-to-day life by my thoughts and my feelings. And to me, that is recovery. In a nutshell, is okay, so I can think and feel whatever I want, but that doesn't have to dictate what I do. So, if I think I need to use, I actually don't need to use. It's just a thought. If I'm feeling, whatever I'm feeling, like, that's okay. So it's a bunch of different things. It's, for me, it's learning self-compassion. It's learning how to be with myself. It's learning to accept my experience moment by moment. I don't know. It's hard to put into words, but like you said, like, to me, meditation and mindfulness isn't this spiritual, levitating kind of thing. It is like, I like the science behind it, and the science behind it is really clear. It says, if you meditate consistently for a period of time, your brain starts to change. Like, I want to move through life without being like reactive to kind of every single situation, or I want to move through life and kind of be able to, I guess, I want to move through life through like calmness and ease, rather than stress and anxiety and all this different stuff.
Yeah. No, interesting.
That was a long form answer.
No, I like it. Well, it's one of those hard things, like, everybody says it. And the reason why I ask, because everybody says it, and it feels like, to me anyway, that meditation is just slowly turning into like one of those tick box things, and people aren't taught about it, I suppose, and they're just told to do it, and they don't really know how it helps. So yeah, when it doesn't have immediate results, they just kind of give up on it,
Yeah. Well, and that's like, it's cool you mentioned that, because often I hear people say like, oh, I don't have the brain to meditate, or like, I'm too restless to meditate, or like stuff like that. And I go, nah, but like, that's why you do it. Like, you do that stuff to learn, like, to not be a super restless person, or to not be kind of so reactive to all these kind of emotions and feelings. And like, when we talk about like meditation, like, most of those, like, therapies like CBT and like DBT and all this stuff that, psychologists do, like, the common theme these days is they all have some aspect of mindfulness.
Yeah.
I just think that that in terms of recovery, so I'm going off on a tangent, but in terms of recovery, like, you asked me what recovery is to me. Really, it's just about consistently having a growth mindset, and consistently going like, if I can make this little bit of change, in this small period of time, I can't imagine how much like change and difference my life is going to look like down the track if I keep working on myself, and keep looking at myself and going, how and gauging how I respond in situations, how I interact with people, how I move in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, that's stuff I'm passionate about. Is like we do have this like limitless potential,
Yeah.
and yeah, it excites me.
Yeah. So like that potential and what we were talking about right at the start, like sharing your story and all that kind of jazz.
Mm.
This is a bit of a question without notice, but how have you gone about separating, like not being defined in the, because you're in the alcohol and drug space and mental health space, working with other people, whatever. How have you gone about defining yourself as more than just like the person in recovery and actually, yeah, like having value and something to offer? Like, has that been hard? Do people often just kind of write you off as the lived experience guy, or
Yeah, totally, man. Like look, something that I've always been really big on is, like getting into that field of work is, I really value the lived experience of people, but I also really value education,
yeah,
because I never kind of did education when I was, younger. Nowadays, I really value that stuff. So to me, what I think makes a really good worker is a mix of both.
yeah,
And you don't have to have lived experience to be a good worker. I'll just add, but like I think, I've never wanted to be defined by, by my past, or I'm not employed because I have experience. I'm employed because I have an education.
yeah,
You know, um, and look, I think it kind of like it comes down to that stuff of uh like when I really made an effort to challenge those beliefs when I came into recovery. So like I mentioned before, I always thought I was kind of really, dumb and all that stuff. So I went out and I kind of dipped my toes in the water of some study, and I proved to myself that I could do that stuff. So I went and did a bit more study, and then I proved to myself that I could do that stuff. So I went and did a bit more, and that created healthy self-esteem.
yeah,
That created a different aspect to my identity.
yeah,
And through doing that stuff, I've built, my own esteem and gone, yeah, that my past and that story is a part of me, but it's not all of me.
yeah,
And that's what recovery has been about, is like, someone's identity is made up of all these different things. And kind of when you're in early recovery, that is your identity. And like, you've just got this recovery identity. But then the more you move out into life, you get some study, or you get some work, or, you find a hobby, and like, all these things make up your identity. So while I've got my work and my story, I've got other things I'm interested in, like they all prop each other up. So yeah, I think it's been about building self-esteem, and about how, how confident I am in myself to not let that stuff define me.
yeah. So it's really interesting you say that. I love it because
That makes sense.
yeah, yeah, and it's really interesting because I've had conversations with you, and I think it's interesting for people to hear. Like, not that there's fucking anything wrong with this, by the way. I'm actually quite envious because I'm about as handy as a foot. So I actually wish that I could do more. But just for Leo, like I remember him kind of, because Leo was doing a lot of like concreting and had always done, and was doing like landscape gardening, and had quite a bit of experience in that. And yeah, we kind of talked about many times, not because there's anything wrong with it, but just for you, you were like holding yourself back with it. And you were kind of like, I don't want to dig holes for the rest of my life, but I feel like this is all I can do. And then it was just so huge for you stepping outside of that and doing different stuff.
Totally. I think yeah, man, like that's exactly right. Like, so I got into trades and stuff, through that drug and alcohol worker that I was talking about before. He, as a young person, he got me in my first job. He got me into an apprenticeship when I was still using drugs, and tried to help me through life. And so I dropped out of school, and I started working in trades and stuff. And when I was younger, I actually really loved that stuff because it'd give me money. I could be semi-active. I could smoke cigarettes during the day, like, and you know, like that's the hope I had for myself. The hope was that I'd get a trade, and you know, that would be my life. And like you said, man, there's nothing wrong with that stuff at all. But I didn't have any, like, that was all I wanted for my life. And then when I started to have a new experience with life and in recovery, I go, oh, hold on, like, I can have more. And so it's not necessarily about the actual jobs.
Yeah, that's right.
It's about the idea of like, I can want better for myself.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, like getting clean is, oh yeah, there's more to life. I can want better. It's like work. I can want better. And, you know, when we talk about self-esteem and talk about building, you know, a new identity and, you know, building yourself up to like, to a place where you shouldn't, like, you don't need to use drugs because you love your life so much and you love all these different things. Like challenging those beliefs around, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, and doing that stuff is just, that stuff is recovery for me, you know? Being so fearful of education, and not being good enough and doing it despite feeling really bad about it, and achieving, and then going, all right, new belief, great, I'm all right at that stuff, and then challenging it again and building on that belief, and you know, doing stuff like this, you know, like my first ever kind of speaking thing, like doing stuff like that, you know, when you look at yourself like an anxious person, but then you get up and you can do that stuff, that builds a new belief, you know. So it's all like everything. When you ask the question like, what is recovery to you, like everything is recovery to me. Because you know, the life I had before recovery was solely centered around using drugs and me. And you know, today, like any new experience in life or challenge is recovery.
Yeah. So interesting. Well, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on and doing it again. I know it's hard. We did pretty well. We didn't like just be fucking stupid or whatever. People might like that as well, but we're able to get a little bit serious.
No, it's been good, man. I love having the space to talk about myself for an hour and a half. So thank you.
That's good. Now, I'm not sure. I actually forgot to ask you about this, but we kind of do a little plug for anyone that comes on the show at the end. I don't know if you do anything by yourself or if you pump the agency that you work for, or is there somewhere where people, you know, they like what you're putting down that they can find you or find out what you're involved in?
Oh, look, man. I'd be skeptical to like plug the organization I work for just because I haven't had
you haven't asked about it. Fair enough.
Yeah, I haven't had the okay, but yeah, look, like, man, by all means, if anyone's interested in like having a chat with me further, hit Jack up and you know, I'm happy to answer any questions and have a chat. But really, I guess like the message that like I'd be trying to kind of share today is like, you know, if you're you know, struggling with addiction stuff, if you're kind of in recovery and you're struggling to be there, things get better. Life is actually really cool. And it just takes time. So, yeah, be patient and, I don't know, do some meditation or some shit.
Love it. All right. Good stuff, man. Appreciate it. And I'll talk to you soon.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Hey YouTube watcher, thanks for watching this video and hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you and your family are doing well in these extraordinary times. I also want to ask you, can you please subscribe and hit the bell notification? We're really launching into our YouTube channel this year and want to build our audience so that we can progress through the ranks and basically get the message of recovery and hope and change and all that good stuff out there to as many people as we can. So we would love it if you would consider it and subscribe and help us out. Also, for anyone seeking help and information and resources, we've put together a 100% free online course that you can access, link in the description. So if you are looking for help, hope that, you know, is something that can help you out as well. Until next time, see you in the next video. Peace.